So you're thinking about moving to Portland, Maine, and you're used to the normal metro areas such as Boston, New York City. But I don't think that you should move to Portland unless you're aware of these three major categories. That's what we're going to go over in this video so that you're better prepared when you're making the relocation here to the greater Portland area. If that's something you're interested in, stay tuned. We're going to get right into it. If this is your first time to the channel and you're interested in learning all things about Portland, Maine, and the surrounding areas, be sure to subscribe below, turn on the bell notification so you're the first to learn about all things Portland. Hi, my name's Nick, and my team and I, we get calls, texts, emails from people just like you every single day looking to make the move to Portland, and we love it. So be it 9 or 90 days, don't hesitate to reach out, call, text, email. We'd be happy to make the smooth move to Portland. So as mentioned, I think Portland is a great area. It's a great city. It's where I live in Greater Portland. However, I don't think that you should make the move to Portland unless you know about these three major items. Now we're going to go into a little more detail on all of them, but just to start off, the first one is public transportation. The second one is the rules and kind of regulations. And third is the walkability and styles of homes. These are the three categories we're going to go over. And I think they're really important for anyone looking to relocate here to the city. First thing that we want to talk about is public transportation. So unlike other major metro areas, Boston, for example, you have the public buses, you have taxis, you have Uber, you have the subway. Well, here in Portland, in the greater Portland area, we're very limited on what we have for infrastructure. Specifically, we have public buses. However, the public bus system really only focuses on Portland, South Portland, Westbrook, Scarborough, and a little bit of Falmouth. And if you watch my Portland suburbs video somewhere here, you'll know that there's about 11 or 12 towns that are considered greater Portland. And so the public bus system doesn't really go to all of them. Also, we don't have a subway system. So if you're in Boston, a lot of people commute into the city for work and they use the subway system. So we don't have that here in Portland. It hasn't been set up. And I don't know if it ever will, the way the city's laid out and how close we are to the water. However, we do have the Amtrak, but I don't think the Amtrak's a viable way for you to commute into the city on a daily basis. First, it only has north of Portland, it only has two more train stops, and that is in Freeport and in Brunswick. So there's not enough stops along the way, along the coast, on all the greater Portland cities for you to commute in. And then second, the train station that you get off in Portland is kind of in the middle, let's say the middle, just off of the peninsula. So you're not close enough to the office buildings where you'd be working to kind of make it walkable. Again, we'll talk about that in the third item, but regardless, I don't think the Amtrak's a viable replacement for the subway system. Now, we do have some taxis. We do have Uber, Lyft, the ride-sharing services. They're not as popular, especially the further you get out of Portland and South Portland, Westbrook. But they are available, just not as readily as, say, Boston. Now, for example, I live in Cumberland, the outskirts of Cumberland, the inland side. I don't know, maybe it's different today, but for the longest time, I couldn't get delivery from Portland out here because I was outside of the limit. And there wasn't any Uber or Lyft that would go pick up DoorDash and deliver out here. Now, it might have changed, might have expanded the last couple of months. I honestly haven't checked. I have no need for it, but just keep that in mind in terms of the public transportation. Your standard metro area, we just don't have that same systems. Why don't you share where you're coming from and what public transportation you really enjoy? Comment below. I'd be happy to kind of talk about it and see if we have any similarities here in the greater Portland area. So the second thing that we should talk about if you're making the move to Portland and you need to know about is kind of the housing rules and regulations. And specifically, there's three subparts that I think you need to talk about. I guess really two, and that is the rental market, both long and short term, and then accessory dwellings. So first, long and short term. If you're watching this video, chances are you're looking at maybe buying a property. So you're probably not concerned really about the rental market, but I think it's important to talk about now, so that way, depending on where you go with your real estate portfolio, if you bought a house now and end up moving back with family across country, or you relocated for a job, but you want to keep the condo or single family home you bought, you need to be aware of these. And that is, for long-term rentals, we have rent control. Now, this again is, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of it, but for the most part, high level, if it's an owner-occupied property, you're not subject to rent control. So if you say had an in-law apartment, or you bought a duplex, a triplex, you could rent those out at wherever you felt like there was no rent control in place. But as soon as it becomes a pure investment property, now you get to set that starting benchmark rent, but from there on, you're subject to rent control in Portland, which is just incremental increases. And sometimes that doesn't keep up with where the market value of the property is. The second part of that is short-term rentals. Portland passed ordinances controlling when and where you can use short-term rentals. Again, not to get into the nitty-gritty, when it's an owner-occupied property, you have less rules and regulations to that. So if you want to rent out a room, or if you had wanted to rent out your condo in Portland while you went on vacation to make a little bit extra money, that'd be fine. However, again, once it becomes a pure investment property, you have different rules and requirements for the short-term rental market. So moving away from the rentals, again, still on the rules and regulations, it's the accessory dwellings, or ADUs. Now, I think this is a hidden gem that hasn't really taken effect, and we haven't seen the results of it. But in 2021 and 2021, middle of 2021, Portland passed new rules and laws allowing for accessory dwellings. Now, you're not going to see this really on the peninsula for neighborhoods, because it's just already so highly densely populated. But when you get off peninsula and more of the neighborhoods, single family homes, they've changed the rules and laws that you can add accessory units. So you could add the in-law apartment, you could convert that garage into an apartment, or you can even put a completely separate structure on the property to give you extra living space. Now, I think this is really important because, as mentioned, has happened in the last year or two during the pandemic. So cost of goods, wood, labor is all still really high, relatively speaking. So we haven't seen a lot of people go this route of adding an accessory unit. But I'm thinking, I predict 3 to 5 years, we're going to start seeing houses on the market in Portland have these accessory dwelling units, as they're a great value add. And for someone looking to relocate to Portland, I don't know if you're going to find one in 2022, find many houses with an in-law accessory dwelling. However, it's a great value add opportunity for you looking to compete in this market. If you know that the property is set up to add another unit, you could potentially offer more, because you can add the unit while you're living there and then be able to sell and recoup that value add. So that's why I wanted to bring it up on this video. I think it's a hidden gem in terms of knowledge about Portland and where you can take your property and add value. Now, the third and final thing I want to talk about is kind of the walkability and setup of Portland. So again, I did a video where I talked about all the Portland neighborhoods. It's going to be somewhere here. I don't remember what side, but I'll make sure to put it. So we have really off peninsula and on peninsula neighborhoods. And though that location in Portland is really going to dictate the style of home you're going to be in. Now, you can look at all the closed data of homes to kind of confirm this, but basically On the peninsula, the majority of properties that are being exchanged on the resale market is condos. Condos or multifamilies, and even less multifamilies, because we're actually seeing a lot of multifamilies converted to condos because there's such a high demand for that condo lifestyle. Now, on that, the peninsula is a more walkable area. You have more of the office buildings, you have the restaurants. Groceries is a little questionable on if you could walk. Again, if you look at the map, most of the grocery stores are on the Bayside part of town. So if you lived in the East End, West End, or even on the Old Port, might be a little hard to walk with, $200 worth of groceries. But the peninsula, definitely more walkable. However, I don't think that replaces you actually needing a car. So back on the public transportation, we just don't have that infrastructure for you to just hop on the subway and go down to Target to get your supply, get your home goods and then come home. So you still need a car, which has its limitations on the peninsula due to parking. Here in Maine, we have snow in the winter, so there's always snow bans you have to deal with. You always got to park on the right side of the street. For cleaning, not a lot of properties have parking spaces, and even if they do, you're limited to usually just one. For example, my uncle lives in the Old Port, and I believe he bought it in 2007 or 8 when it was a new construction. And at the time, he only could get one parking spot with his brand new condo. And now him and his wife, they have a car lift like you'd see at a mechanic's, and more in Boston. Because it's so expensive for parking spaces, it was cheaper for them to put a car lift so they could fit 2 sedans in the same parking spot. So that's where you're going to be on the peninsula. You're going to have, circle back, you have more condos, it's more walkable, you still need a car. Now, off peninsula, more the neighborhoods. I think you're definitely going to need a car. You're definitely going to need to commute into the city. You're going to have more single family homes with driveways, potentially garages. So it's going to be a little bit easier to store your car. But you're going to have more single family homes off peninsula, a few multifamilies mixed in, very few condos. And if they're condos, it's more like a townhouse complex where there's 10, 15, 20 townhouse style duplexes or what have you. So they're not really your, 1, 2, 3 condo style like you would have on peninsula downtown. So anyways, you are going to have more single family homes off peninsula, and you're going to need to drive into town. You're going to drive into work. Now you are going to find there's a lot of, restaurants, breweries in the off peninsula area, probably within walking distance for you, but it's just more spread out. Your work's going to be most likely downtown on the peninsula. So the walkability there a little bit shifts when you go to more of that single family style housing. So there you have it. Those are the 3 things that I think you really need to be aware of before you make the move to Portland. And those are the public transportation, the rules and regulations. Again, even if the short-term, long-term rental doesn't affect you right now as a home buyer, it potentially could down the road, so you need to be aware of it. And the walkability style of housing that you're going to find in Portland. As mentioned in the beginning of the video, we get calls, texts, emails from people just like you every single day trying to make that move in Portland or the greater Portland area. We love it, and we'd be happy to help you, be it 9 or 90 days, make that smooth move to Portland. Pick up the phone, send us an email, text, even a phone call, carrier pigeon, doesn't matter. We'd be happy to be in touch and help you out. Till next time.